Welcome to this episode on the Health and Happiness Show, where it's my mission to change your mindset so that you can live a healthy and happier life. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's go. Hey guys, it's Ollie here, and welcome back to another episode on the Health and Happiness Show. Today we are joined by a very special guest. She is the founder of StrongHerYou, a revolution which has helped over 500 women worldwide get to know, love, and be themselves. And most importantly, know that they are enough. With over 16 years experience working in the corporate sector and having battled both depression and gone through a divorce, this woman is now on a mission to changing the lives of women through personal and professional experiences, her expertise as a coach, and through the teaching of what she calls Noggin knowledge. It is therefore with great pleasure and excitement that I welcome to the show Nicola Buckley. Nicola, how are you?
I'm really, really good, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I love an intro. I was like, oh, that's me. That's cool. That's very exciting.
I would have captured the audience interest already, but those two words, noggin knowledge. Tell me, what the hell is noggin knowledge?
So noggin knowledge is essentially at the heart of what I teach and coach. So I help incredible women who tend to be high achievers and leaders, so directors and CEOs and MDs, or women who want more in their lives and they know that they have the potential for more. And I help them to really rediscover their clarity on who they are and the confidence in what they want. And at the very heart of that is noggin knowledge. So noggin knowledge is essentially answering the question, I know what I need to do, but I don't seem to be able to do it. So those frustrating things that seem to hold us back. So that can be things like comfort eating, self-sabotage, talking yourself down, like being your own worst critic, feeling like a fraud, feeling like an imposter, procrastination, and just lacking that kind of clarity and confidence. So all of those things tend to be because we don't feel like we're enough, which we'll kind of talk about, I think, separately in a bit. But the noggin knowledge is at the very heart of helping you to understand if you're struggling with any of those. A lot of them are due to just a brain process and mechanism that you don't understand. But we tend to blame ourselves. So we'll be very hard on ourselves, say, I'm weak, I'm lazy, I'm stupid, I'm greedy, I'm not capable, I'm a failure. And we'll go into being very personal and judgmental. Whereas actually, what the noggin knowledge does is it just helps you to understand that there's all these brain processes and mechanisms constantly at play, that our brain is doing the job that it's designed to do, but we take it as very personal. So the more I can teach and coach and share with the world my noggin knowledge, the more that we're going to have brilliant women that are just going to let go of being so hard on themselves and judging themselves, and just blaming themselves for where they are and ruminating over things in the past and being anxious about the future. Because if you can know that it's a structural process, it's like, well, actually, I'm going to let go of that blame and guilt and judgment, and now I understand it. What can I do with it? How can I change my world based in being in a brain friendly way? So I went to a weekend course. I had a gym before I was doing the stuff that I am now up in Reading. Ironically, a female transformation studio in a rugby club, which brought lots of stories that we'll talk about another time. But anyway, let's just say welcome week, I saw a lot of naked men that I wasn't really expecting. That was the rugby welcome for me. But anyway, but I had this gym, and there was a group of women that probably similar to you that would do everything we said and get great results immediately. There was another group of women that would then be a bit on and off and be a bit inconsistent. And when they were on it, they were getting great results. And we just had to get them to be more consistent. But there was a group of women that, would ultimately invest a lot of money and probably never show or do very little. And it wasn't the training and nutrition was going to be a sticking plaster for them. It wasn't going to solve how they were feeling. There was something much deeper than that at the heart of it. So I saw this weekend course. I've been following a guy for a while called Dax Moy, and I went on this weekend course. I went down to London. I sat in this mundane lawyer's office, all grey and dreary. And it was like, but to me, it was the most beautiful place in the world because it completely changed how I saw the world. And that weekend, I was the girl that spent the entire weekend in tears, proper crying of red eyes, snotty nose, no one can really understand you, can barely breathe. Because I saw that what had happened at the end of my marriage and how I'd behaved and what I was saying, what I was thinking, what I was feeling, because of that, all of that was down to brain process and mechanisms. And I let go of like 5 years of blaming myself. I let go of just 5 years of being hard on myself because I'd failed him. I let go of, oh my God, I've just this marriage that I had and with who I thought I was going to be with forever, it's my fault, and having it all on me, taking full responsibility for everything. And I saw that weekend that actually it wasn't just, it was brain process mechanisms of how I reacted. And I sat there and I thought, if I can feel so different, you know, it was a long journey after that, obviously, as well. There's that journey carries on. But if I can feel so different in 2 ways, 2 days by understanding this, I want every woman in the world to know that there's all these brain processes and mechanisms that help to set you free, in knowing that actually you can change your life, you can change how you feel, and you can, you know, you can want more and you can have more, because it's once you know it, you work with it. And that's when your heart, if you're very heart-led like me and very emotional, and I'm just you know, I really follow my intuition and my heart and my gut instinct now. But if you merge this with like understanding of the brain and the head stuff, that is when you're unstoppable. That is when I think like we can achieve anything, and women can have the job that they want. They can have the career and the family, and they can have the business if they want that. Why not? You know, what is stopping them? If it's themselves, here's your instruction manual to learn how to speak brain. Now go and rule the world, women. So yeah, that is what Noggin knowledge is. It's brain, it's learning how to speak brain.
So that's really interesting to hear. Obviously, I've had a similar interest in the brain, given my health background, and certainly when I got diagnosed, like my thinking then, my mindset was like, right, I need to understand about the brain if I have a brain issue then. So my clarity was maybe a little bit different. So you mentioned the key word there, clarity. Yeah. Would you say that weekend conference, you know, with Dax Moy was that first moment of clarity for you, which has now since led you on this journey to get into where you are mentally, emotionally, and physically?
It was like a sliding doors moment. It was when my life changed forever. Absolutely. Have I had crystal clear clarity ever since? No, not really. Do I have it every single day? No, but do I have more clarity than I've ever had in my life? Do I think clarity, especially at the moment, is an absolute superpower that can stop you procrastinating, stop you feeling overwhelmed, stop the anxiety? When you have clarity, you come back to you come back to what's important to you and what you love, how you want your life to be. And it's twin sister, if you like, is confidence, because when you have that clarity, there's then the confidence to take what I call inspired action, which is inspired from the heart. It's like, oh my God, my arse is on fire, I can't not do this because I'm in love with it, rather than the kind of begrudging, oh, I should do that. It's like, well, let's leave the should life behind. The should life isn't for anyone. You don't have to follow the set path of, you know, university, get married, you know, have children, bigger house, bigger job. You don't need to do that if that's not right for you. And let's create your life and a feel-good life instead of the should life. And yeah, that clarity is at the heart of it. Just everything, when you have clarity, there's that amazing energy that goes with it, you know, that inspired energy of like, people will say to me, you're so motivated, like you just show up every day, you give great content, you know, you serve your clients really well. And it's like, I have zero motivation, and people look at me very strangely, and it's like, it's not motivation, it's inspiration, because I have that clarity on what my magic is and how I can help. And I want that to reach more women, and it needs to reach more women. It's like a fire inside of me. And on the days that I wobble, have a bit of a rest, and then come back to my purpose and think, no, clarity, this is what I'm here for. This is my magic. This is what I was designed to do, if you like. And that's what I want to help other women to find. And that clarity just, you know, it doesn't always lead down an easy path. It can be the end of relationships. It can be the end of a career or a career change or starting a business and, you know, feeling quite exposed, not knowing stuff again. But it's true and real for them. They live a true and deep conscious life, rather than, you know, the Groundhog Day existence. And I think a client said to me this week, a few people said to me this week, a few ladies said to me this week, they're just like, I'm going through the motions. Like, it's stop sleepwalking, wake the fuck up. Let's live truly and deeply and consciously. And at the heart of that is clarity. And the clarity on who you are leads into that. This is a clarity on what I want, and then the confidence to take inspired action. So I see them like twin sisters, if you like.
So Nick, I want more clarity in my life. I'm lost. Yeah. I'm unfulfilled. What are those first steps, right? Because everything's a minefield. Like, where do I start? What are those first steps? What's that first step that I need to take to finding clarity? Is it looking inside? Is it going on Google? Like, what are those first
Oh,
steps?
no, don't Google. Do not Google. Google is it's declarity, because it's brilliant when you have clarity and then you can search and you can build your vision. But so to start with, so I would say the first thing I always say to clients is clarity isn't in doing more. Clarity isn't on the hamster wheel. Clarity isn't living in that life at 100 miles an hour going through the motions. There's no clarity there. That's existing. It's not living. Clarity actually starts when you stop and you pause and you allow yourself time just to breathe, and you check in with yourself and you reconnect back to who you are, because we spend so much of our lives now living externally. There needs to be that shift to live internally. So what do I mean by that? Externally, we have social media, and you can lose yourself down the social media, what my friend calls a scroll hole, for hours. We both we spend a lot of time online because our business is there, but you can spend an hour and you think, what was I actually meant to be doing? I'm a lot better now, but still a work in progress. There's also our phones. So there's 5 different ways for people to contact you now. So there's always that constant, oh my God, is this going on, or is that happening, or have I heard from this client, or, there's always that connection. And then the final thing is the pace of life is so fast now. I know it's a bit weird with time at the moment. Is there more time or less time? Everyone's slightly different. But the pace of life and social media and constantly being on with our phones means that we live very externally. And it makes us quite rootless, like we don't have an anchor, we don't have grounding in ourselves. So to stop and get back to clarity, you need to stop and get back to yourself. And it's not like we can fly off to Bali at the moment for a couple of weeks. It's not like we can even go to our favourite spa, hopefully soon. But it can just be, I love tea. I have something called your cup of tea voice, and that's what we want to get you back to. So it would be just sit down, sit nice and tall, hand on heart, deep breaths, sit there with your cup of tea for 10 minutes and just, how do I feel today? What is going on for me today? What do I need today? And it's that switch from living externally to living externally. So if you have no clarity, stop looking outside for it, because that just creates more confusion, overwhelm, stress, anxiety. And women who want more and want to achieve, we can often be a little bit of a victim of the next shiny object. So, the next qualification or the next promotion, and always moving forward. Whereas actually clarity, it's almost like if the waters are quite muddied from being, you've stood in a puddle and the waters are muddied from the ripples, let the ripples calm. And that's when clarity comes back. It's exactly like that in your own mind. You need to stop, you need to slow, you need to breathe, like properly, consciously breathe, nice and deeply. How do I feel today? What is going on for me today? What do I need today? And that's a huge shift away from that very frantic, going through the motions pace of life. And it's that shift back to you. So if you're feeling like that today, start with that. There's one other tool that I want to mention as well, actually. You can, when you ask yourself how you feel, make that a daily check-in. But another great thing, if you're literally in the midst of overwhelm, when you sit down to do something, but there's so much to do, you don't know where to start. Running your own business can create that. Having a big career, or just, family, can create all those feelings really often. Sit down with a blank sheet of paper. You can do this again over a cup of tea. A big fan of tea, probably noticed. And just empty your head of everything. Literally, like, write down. I call it a mental vomit. You might have heard of it as a brain dump. Call it what, I don't care what you call it. I care that you do it, because it's like a dustpan and brush to your brain. And if you're in that process, if life's so busy for you at the moment and you're homeschooling and you're trying to keep some fitness, but you're also working and there's loads going on, you never have that attention in your own mind. So just sit down, empty your head of everything, and just to see what's there. And then 2 more steps from that would be, look at everything you've written down, look at what is in your control, what is not in your control, and then also look at what is data and what is drama. Drama is the stories that you've kind of created, or when I go back to work, it might be like this and I'm worried about it. Cross out everything that you're not in control of, cross out everything that is drama, and then you're left with where you can focus your time, love, and energy to come back to you and what your life is about. So I would say those 2 things, stop and pause, create that in your day, every day somewhere, to have that check-in with yourself, or write it or speak it or share it, and start that shift to living more internally. Clarity is internal. The second thing is that brain dump, that mental vomit. Start of a process that I have with my clients called the Peace of Mind List, which we can share a link to if that would help our listeners. But start with that brain dump. Clear your head. So dustpan and brush your brain. and what is going on, what are you worried about, and you'd probably be surprised at what you can actually take out and not worry about, because actually it's not in your control. You know, we can't know when we're all going to come out of this and what it's going to look like right now, but we can know what is going to happen today.
I think that's really, really powerful. I absolutely love, I'm a massive fan of brain dumps. I would call them brain dump. I think
Yeah,
mental vomit is even better.
mental way. It's
The
quite
dating
graphic, isn't
drama, yeah,
it?
really, really good. Well, let's relate this back to Noggin knowledge. What's
Yeah,
happening in both the midst of clarity
yeah,
and confusion?
yeah.
So those two
Okay.
states of
Yeah,
mind, what's happening up here? And
yeah.
yeah, like tell me
Yeah,
about
sure.
that.
No, great question. Love it. So when you are, let's take the first one. So when you're overwhelmed, stressed, worried, anxious, all those things, there's two things that are going on. First thing is, I love this analogy. I'm a bit of an analogy queen. I actually have a couple of clients who are like, it's like an analogy off when we're on our course, and I love it. So I'm trying to anyway. But yeah, I love an analogy. It just helps make things really simple. I'm a good Cornish simple girl at heart. I like things to be simple. So the analogy is, when you're feeling that stress, worry, anxiety, that confusion, and your head's so full, you don't know where to start. If you're anything like me, it's like not every day anymore, but some days I can have like 20 tabs open on my computer. And your brain is the most amazing supercomputer. Even now, even with technology and artificial intelligence, all that sort of stuff, the combination the brain has of being able to recognize what's going on in your world through the senses, plus the ability to attach emotion, physical movement, hormonal reactions to that, is just beyond anything. So it's this amazing gift that we're giving at birth, but we're not given any manual or instruction guide, or there's no online help. There's no way that we know how to drive it. We have to pass a test to drive a car, yet our brain is so much more, yet there's no test or support. So we end up quite often blaming ourselves, thinking that's actually it's a brain process. So the brain process, when you're confused, is that there's too many tabs that you've left running. So that brain dump is almost, what are all those tabs, and then the closing of them, the crossing out of the not in control of, or it's future thinking or past thinking or it's drama, just closes down some of those tabs, and it means that you come back to having one or two things open that you're working on right now. Looking at my computer going, not too bad today actually. So that is very much when you're in that state of confusion and overwhelm, that really horrible, like I literally can't think because there's so much in my mind. When you get to clarity, it's from a brain perspective, it's very much about, there's that absolute focus, and it's actually a process called, it maps into a process called the reticular activating system. So the RAS system. So reticular activating system, try saying that after a few drinks. But it's very much about, if you feed into the brain what you're looking for from your life and what you want from your life, there's the whole law of attraction piece, and I certainly believe in that. But added to that, when you set off the reticular activation system, when you get very clear on who you are, how you want to show up in the world and what you want, the brain then actively goes through the millions of bits of data received per second, and things that you didn't know were kind of linked or had potential then start to show up in your life, and the brain will pull you into them because you have that clarity. So analogy, imagine it's like a rocket taking off. So you have that clarity in your mind, and then you're very clear on what your goals are related to that, and they're feel good goals. So you have the heart part in there as well, because that adds fuel to it, because the brain goals are all about the brain looking and searching for a feeling, not the thing. And then when you have that, that sets off that process, the reticular activation system. Suddenly things will start landing at your, opportunities will land at your door, things that you hadn't thought about that just become really obvious. People will appear back in your life that are really relevant, or new opportunities open up. And that, I do believe, there's definitely something in the universe, and us being clear on what we want and then asking for it. But I also believe very much there's also the brain that kind of supports that process as well. So that is what's going on when you have that clarity, and that's why clarity is an absolute superpower in my mind. It's just it's the biggest gift I think we can give ourselves, and that's why, and there's a lot of things I could talk about that come out of my coaching, but clarity and confidence for me just so powerful, and they're twin sisters that come together. And if you have that in your life more and more, and I'm not perfect, I have my wobbles, and I have, but I grow through them and I share more through them, so I'm quite open about them. But I have ways of coming back out of that, and I have my techniques, and then that's more that I then share with my clients. So it's just such a superpower, and the brain the brain will then pick out this is where we need to be going, this is who we need to be working with, these are the opportunities, and then bring in the law of attraction stuff, and you're on the road. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, like when you were saying about the reticular activation system,
Yeah,
is that
that's
right?
it. Yeah.
Like, ironically, the law of attraction is like,
Yeah.
oh wow. Clarity moment.
Yeah,
See what I
there you
did
go,
there?
light bulb. But I absolutely believe in law of attraction. But I also I'm very very emotional, and I'm quite woo and spiritual, increasingly so, but I'm also very logical, because I had a 16-year corporate marketing career and I ran multi-million-pound launches of household names, so I had to have that logic and structure. Structure is still a work in progress, because almost like I've been a bit anti-structure, because it's like, well, that feels like corporate again. But structure for me is now going to help me get freedom. But it's very much like, for me, it's that lovely comfort blanket of being able to explain almost to my clients, like, the logic of emotion. If you comfort eat, here's why. If you're self-sabotaging, it's not actually your thing. This is the brain process. If you're your own worst critic, this is what's going on. The brain has a negative bias. It's just running the show. Here's how you can change it. And I think that logic of emotion is so powerful. As women especially, we can get very caught up in the emotion and I remember I used to, if I woke up in a bad mood in corporate world, I'd then put the alarm, put the snooze on, then be late, then get in the shower late, then not have any breakfast, then probably hit rush hour, then get to work, not have the time I needed to prep my meetings for the whole day, then be running late all day, tell everyone I was in a bad mood, act like I was in a bad mood, speak like I was in a bad mood. Guess what? I've created a bad mood. But feelings aren't esoteric and just land on us. We can actually shape how we want to feel. And every feeling is a recipe, and there's a list of ingredients, so you can shift and change and really start to create how you want to feel, which is so powerful.
Yeah, no, like, so in relation, I want to go back to obviously one of your clarity moments, and what sort of led on this journey of the Noggin knowledge was, you mentioned you going through the divorce with your
Yeah.
previous husband,
Yeah.
and what was the part in the brain then, like, because a relationship is something we all have to work with.
Yeah.
It's our spouse, our friendships, our family, our colleagues, right? Like, what is it in the brain then that is maybe firing these different neurosynaptic, like,
Yeah.
measures
Ooh,
on
like it. Yeah.
doing my homework.
Yeah.
What is it in the brain, and this is the power, this is the real question, what can we influence as a result of the brain to strengthen and build upon our relationships?
Yeah. Oh, good question. So the brain, with relationships, so it's probably worth just explaining quickly the difference between male and female brain in relation to relationships. So there's three parts of our brain. So we have an animal part, which is very primal, and it's all about safety. So it's where we're stressed, worried, anxious. We then have mammalian, which was the next part to evolve, which is all about care, connection, and love. That evolved when we lived in caves and grouped together to survive. And then we have the human part of the brain very much at the front here behind our forehead, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is where you're yourself, where you learn, grow, and develop. So relationships is kind of focused in that middle part of the brain. For women, that middle part of the brain is physically bigger. So what it means is that we care a lot more about he said, she said, I think they think. I'm not going to do that because people might say, and all those sort of things. Whereas if you notice, like, in conversation with men, like, my partner doesn't worry about, well, he's quite emotional, but he does worry about it more than men, I think, generally. But most men don't worry about that so much. Women can get so caught in, I think they think. And it's a really important part to remember in relationships, that women will naturally read into the text message more, or the slightly negative conversation, or that kind of awkward air that you might have with someone. So from a brain perspective, it's important to know that difference and know that women are naturally more focused on relationships. So we will worry more from that basis, whereas men are generally a bit more animal brain led, and they can be straight into an animal reaction even more quickly than women. So it's important to notice that difference. In terms of relationships and kind of how to, I still think it comes back to have great relationships. It still comes back to that clarity on yourself to lead into the relationship. So that's probably not neuroscience so much. I think for women, it's understanding that we are naturally more focused on that. We're going to be more affected by arguments or by a relationship that doesn't feel great. And we need to own that more and say, actually, you know what, I've outgrown this relationship, or this isn't right for me anymore, or this isn't the person to work with anymore. Actually, I'm stepping up to here. But I think also there's that huge part of just that clarity in who you are. You then go into a relationship knowing yourself and knowing that actually you'll be okay. Even it takes the pressure off the relationship. And my relationship now is so much better because I have that true and deep understanding myself, and I have that clarity on me. And from a brain perspective, it's just that certainty that this is brilliant and we love being together. But actually, on the flip side, if anything happened, I've got my own back and I know I'll be okay. And that means there's freedom in the relationship for us both to be truly ourselves. And I would say to anyone going into a relationship, take away that pressure of someone. I know for a long time, I joke about this with my client group, but for a long time I was like that obsessive mem, like the obsessive girlfriend, the one with the really starry eyes, because I wanted someone to save me. I wanted someone to rescue me, especially after my marriage, because my ex-husband was very much like an alpha male, wanted me to be the little woman that said yes, and the wife that, I had a great career, but he wanted me to stay home, eventually have children. That was all great, but it just felt like I didn't have a voice. Like I wore clothes that were very unnoticeable. Like I didn't have my hair long because he didn't like that. It just all that sort of stuff. And actually now, like, I am myself in a relationship. I would say to anyone who's struggling in a relationship, like, it's not down to anyone. You are responsible for how you feel. No one is responsible for making you feel a certain way. That is down to you. No one is coming to save you. And I mean this with a nudge with love from the heart. No one's come to save you. No one's coming to rescue you. And it's not fair to put that pressure on someone else to expect them to do that. So I'd say it's probably not neuroscience based, but it's my beliefs and what I teach and coach. Have that clarity in you, because then you have that consistency. Then you know your value, you know your worth. From a brain point of view, you have prediction response on yourself. So you can stay more in your human brain and stay calmer through relationships. And that takes that pressure off the other person to rescue you or save you. And like I said, this is all from the heart, said with absolute love. Don't know anyone's situation, but it's just, that's how I view the world. And that's my belief around relationships. And then you grow together, because you are like, I don't like the term like someone's your other half or like fucking better half. What is that about? Like, you're not a half a person. Like, you don't suddenly become a whole person because you meet someone that is really hot and you really like them and they're going to be brilliant for you. It really annoys me. Like, I know it's a little thing, but it's just that language of better half or other half. Like, I feel like I'm maybe a bit too mature to have a boyfriend now, but he's my partner because I share my life with him, and that feels right. It's a very conscious choice of words. It's not a better half or like other half. Oh God, no, I hate that.
On the subject of
So it's a
self-love,
little bit off the question, but that's what I believe. That's what I teach
yeah.
and coach around relationships. Absolutely. And it's really interesting to remind yourself that women, we are more focused on that relationship side, because there is that bigger part of the brain, the mammalian brain here, which is all about care, connection, love, and where do you fit in the social hierarchy. Which is why, if you fall out with a friend or suddenly you haven't spoken to someone for a while, we might have a bit of a shame spiral about speaking to them again, or I have to explain where I've been, and all those it's like, well, it's just part of being a woman. It's fine.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I mean, when we think of relationships, we think about the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the wife, the husband, right? But actually, relationships start with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And it's that
Yes, hugely.
self-love.
Great point.
In relation to self-love, what do you do to practice self-love? And perhaps what have you learned along the way in terms of the value of self-love, and perhaps, what your advice would be to some of the listeners who don't know where to begin in terms of how, because self-love has this attachment of being selfish, but actually I think it's being more selfless to others if you start loving yourself first. So let's dive into the heart here. We've gone into the brain. Let's go down into the heart. And go, what is self-love to you? What's your definition? And what do you do to practice self-love?
Yeah. So self-love for me, I probably have a slightly different perspective. So it's not about face packs and bath bombs and, half day at a spa, although I'd kill for that at the moment. But for me, it's much, much deeper than that. And I think self-love starts with, it's very difficult to love something if you don't know what it is. It's very, when you meet someone new and you're very attracted to them, that isn't love at that point. That's lust, and kind of just like, oh my God, it's animal thing. It's very different. As you get to know them, you start to love them. So I would say for a lot of women, where they fall down is, I think that, that whole thing, I think it's great to spend time with yourself. And if you love face packs and bath, I'm not decrying that. I'm not saying don't do it. But that doesn't create self-love for me. Where self-love starts is with you getting to know yourself and you becoming the world leading expert on who you are and learning about the black and the white and the grey and everything in between. And that is like you become the absolute authority in the universe on you, because no one else is going to do that for you. And the brilliant thing is that it gives you is when you know yourself, you start to accept yourself, then you start to like yourself, then you start to love yourself. And I would say my voice now, my voice that plays through in my head is very much a supporter. My voice in my head used to be the inner bitch. She was an absolute bitch. It was horrific. How hard I was on myself was just awful. Whereas now, if say something went wrong in the business, I made a mistake, it would be, come on, Nick, you've got better than that. You can do better than that. It's not it's not berating myself. If I'm really tired, it would be, sitting down to do something and I just don't feel like it's the right time. Conscious choice. Are you going to push yourself to do this now, or actually going to say, right, why don't you just stop and see how you feel in 2 hours? And I think there's that misconception that you can just apply self-love and do all these lovely things for yourself. But actually, if you don't know yourself, you don't see your value and your worth from that knowledge and understanding, it's not going to work for you. You're just going to be, it's almost like affirmations, isn't it? If you have an affirmation, someone said to you, try this affirmation. I had a client came to me once, she said, given this affirmation by a coach before you, and it was like, I'm going to look in the mirror every day and say, I love myself. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. How's it going? Rubbish. Why? Because I don't like myself, let alone love myself. Okay. Let's stop that for the time being. Let's go back to you knowing yourself through the process of, how do I feel today? Through the 5 layers of clarity and confidence. So what are your values? What are your beliefs? What's your story and history to date? The chapters of your life. What's your language and how do you speak to yourself? And what's your magic? What is the thing that you do in the way that you do it that has a big impact on the world? That is who you are. Out of that comes then, oh my God, like I can see where I'm stopping myself because of my beliefs. I can see why I made this decision because of my values, and I believe it and I stand by it. I can see this is my magic and this is where my fulfillment and purpose is going to come from. I see I need to change my language and how I speak to myself. And my story, some bits I find difficult, but actually I'm generally very accepting of it because it's brought me to where I am now. So for me, self-love starts with that understanding of yourself and that framework and that knowledge of you. Because like I said, out of that comes knowledge, out of that comes acceptance of yourself and all your weird, wonderful quirks and the way that you do things. And, for me, massive hair, very loud laugh, curves on curves on curves. And, one minute can be emotionally flying high. The next minute can be like, oh my God, it's really difficult. But that's all part of me. And that's absolutely fine because I accept it and I know it. My partner knows it now. And then I've started to like, and I will even more so start to love that. Like, I'm very, very proud of myself. I'm very proud. And if I can help other women do that, and again, because it's a process, you can actually measure it. You can see the little shifts and there's little changes in, actually, no, that's a boundary for me. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say no. Actually, that feels like it's too much to take on. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to allow myself a little bit more time. Or in the world and how it is at the moment, I'm going to do my best with homeschooling and trying to fit work around it. I'm not going to kill myself. And, the children have to go back to school being geniuses. And it's then supporting yourself through what's going on in life rather than just berating yourself for it and pushing yourself harder and harder and harder. Like, enough doesn't come from doing more. Enough is in that long journey of you getting to know yourself. And if you don't feel like you know yourself at the moment, we go back to starting with what we talked about earlier, which is that stop and that pause and that daily checking with yourself. It starts there. It can be a really simple way of starting. And then you kind of build from there. And my clients, the more they know themselves, it's a long journey. Yeah, like my VIP clients will stay with me for potentially up to a couple of years, but it's the shifts and changes even initially. I am not going to tolerate going back to one client at the moment. She's already booked out the rest of the year to have 4 days because she's got so much holiday. She's only going to work 4 days a week. So she doesn't have to commute so much. So she can do our work in that day. So she can spend time with her dog and she can plan the other stuff that she wants to do in her life. that's a commitment that's already there after one session, which is brilliant. So it's that process. Self-love for me is that process of you going truly and deeply into knowing yourself and become the world leading authority in you. Out of that comes knowledge, out of that comes acceptance, out of that comes liking yourself, think, oh yeah, I look right today, or I feel good today, or I did a good thing today. Out of that then comes that love eventually. And then, a top tip, if I can share a top tip, is all of my clients create something called a love list. It's as simple as it says on the tin. So it's a list of things that they love doing that is led from like, I just love this, it just feels good to me. It can involve other people, but it's led by you and what feels good. Excuse me. And every week my clients will pick one or two things from their love list, or if they're not feeling great and they've had a bit of a crappy week, what are you going to do? What are you going to take from that list? Obviously, you're in the confines of now for now. What are you going to do to remind yourself of your value, your worth, and that you're the priority in your own life? And it's a super simple way of starting that self-love journey, and that's that understanding of yourself journey. Yeah, but great question. I think there's too much that I see that is about, I'm going to mend myself, fix a lifetime of hating myself through some face packs and bath bombs, and it's long walks. It's like all of that is good, but it has to be in the context of a structure and a journey. Otherwise you're just literally sticking a plaster on an open wound.
Oh no, that's freaky.
What?
Not even joking, right? I was about to say, I think like summing up what you just said there,
Yeah.
it's as if the face packs, the spas is like a plaster, and it's not actually getting to the root of the
Yeah. Look, you're tuned in now. That's it now.
Oh yes, subconscious magic.
I say it a lot because I don't know, you probably see it similar in your world as well, but I see so many women that are doing things to mend or fix themselves, that I can see it. And I have a lot of experience coaching now. I've coached thousands of women now through my free challenges and through my work. And, it's brilliant. It's brilliant that you're committed to change. That is brilliant. I'm not decrying that. I'm not putting that down. I'm not judging you for the way that you're doing it. But actually, it needs to be you need to go into the, almost into the darkness. You need to be brave enough to go into the depths of who you are, because that is where you find, that's where you find that happiness and fulfillment. It's not out here. It's not in living externally. It's not in the quick fixes or, the losing weight. All of those things are brilliant. And I really respect what you do. And I'm on a fitness journey and health journey myself, but it's all about you getting to know yourself. It's where everything flows from. And it's a journey. Then it becomes a journey of love. So losing weight becomes a journey of love. Your career change, it's a journey of love. Actually, this relationship isn't right for me. Even that is a journey of love. So it changes everything.
Yes, and yes. Before I ask my last question, I have to ask this.
Go on.
Jam or cream first on the scone?
Oh my God, amazing.
Depending on your answer, I may not air this episode.
Oh, harsh, way harsh. So I'm Cornish. So what it should be is jam and then cream. That to me doesn't really work, because I think dairy needs to be the base. So do you know, if I have, this is like, I'm a bit of a fan of cream teas. I love a cream tea. It's one of my favorite things. And we actually had one for my birthday in lockdown. That was really, it felt like a normalish, it felt like a nice treat. It was lovely. But I would split scone and I would have one of each. I would actually have one of each. And I think dairy needs to be the foundation. Like you put butter on first and jam on your toast, don't you? Why would you do any different with this? So yeah, I do it the Devon way, despite being a Cornish girl. So maybe a bit controversial. It's a scone anyway. It's going to go in and it's going to taste amazing.
As long as it tastes good.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. That's great. Okay, then my final question is, what is the one thing we can do that will have the biggest impact on both our health and happiness? The one thing.
It's got to be that. It's got to be stop and pause and a daily check-in. Yeah, definitely. It's where it all starts. And it's the first, for many women, it would be the first place that we would get them to start. Definitely. and because it's putting a full stop rather than just. I think as women we can very much be, again, a couple of clients were saying to me this week, they feel like right at the beginning of our journeys, but they feel like they're stuck, just like, I'm just getting through the day. It feels like a grind at the moment. So it's that when you stop and pause, you're kind of saying no to that, and you're creating space for you just to breathe and just to look up rather than always looking down because you're walking. Look up and see what is around you. Just, is this what you actually want? And it starts there. And that daily check-in is that direct connection back to yourself. And I talk about something a lot called your cup of tea voice. I love tea anyway. Like, I love an afternoon tea. I love a green tea. Like, I love an Earl Grey. But your cup of tea voice is the voice of your heart and your feelings. And when you're living so externally with so much noise from social media, from your phone, from such a fast pace of life, you lose that connection to yourself, and you lose that connection to that voice. And when you stop and pause, you turn the volume up on that voice and you turn the volume down on the distractions. And that is where you start to come back to clarity. And that is where you start to come, I describe it as coming home to who you are. And that's what we all, not even just women, as a fucking society, that's what we all need to commit to. And I think the world will be a much better place if we just all tune into that. This is how I really feel I'm having the courage over time to share it and speak it, and really nurturing that intuition. Definitely. So that's where anyone should start with that.
Love it. Nick, where can the listeners find out more about you and your work?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. So LinkedIn, I am obviously Nicola Buckley, and on Facebook I have a free group which is the Clarity and Confidence Community. So we have guest experts in there that are awesome, and regularly, and then I do a cup of chat training once a week or so. So this week we're going to be talking about the inner bitch and why she's not actually a bitch, and why you need to make her your friend, and how to do that. And yes, that's a great place to start. And then I also have I can share a link, but I have a free clarity and confidence guide as well, which is if you're in that feeling overwhelmed and like there's too much going on, especially in the now, which is, it's absolutely understandable why. That's a great place to get started. So yeah, but I've loved today. Great questions, and really, really enjoyed it. So thank you very, very much.
Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure. And until next time, stay healthy, be happy.